All right, we got one last concluding story here about Elisha's various acts of ministry in his day and time, and then we're going to get back to the main line of the historical narrative. 2 Kings, starting at the beginning of chapter 8. Now Elisha had said to the woman, this goes back to the Shunammite woman from a few chapters ago, the woman whose house he stayed in, and then who had a son who died and was resurrected again by Elisha. Now a woman had said to the woman whose son he had restored to life, "Go away with your family and stay for a while wherever you can, because the Lord has decreed a famine in the land that will last 7 years." So we read about a famine earlier. In chapter 4, verse 38, right after we got done reading about the Shunammite, it said Elisha returned to Gilgal and there was a famine in the region. I don't know if it's that famine, it may be. Again, this whole section here is written out of order. So this material probably goes before the last several stories we read. Probably sometime after the chapter 2, verse 4, chapter 4 section about the Shunammite woman. And for some reason it was just included here, even though it doesn't fit here chronologically. So she's supposed to leave. She's supposed to leave the land of Israel to go somewhere else to get away from the famine. And she's been told to do this by the prophet of God. So it would be wrong for her not to. The woman proceeded to do as the man of God said. She and her family went away and stayed in the land of the Philistines for 7 years. And the end of the 7 years, of course, this goes back directly to Joseph and his famine in Egypt, and this is supposed to be a signifier to the people that this is from God. This famine is from God. At the end of the 7 years, she came back from the land of the Philistines and went to the king to beg for her house and land. The king was talking to Gehazi, remember him? The servant of the man of God. So this is before he becomes unclean in the story of Naaman. And had said, "Tell me about all the great things Elisha has done." So he was talking to him about that. Just as Gehazi was telling the king how Elisha had restored the dead to life, the woman whose son Elisha had brought back to life came to beg the king for her house and land. So apparently someone had taken it over while she was gone. Gehazi said, "This is the woman, my lord the king, and this is her son whom Elisha restored to life." So he's with him. The son is with her even. The king asked the woman about it, and she told him. Then he assigned an official to her case and said to him, "Give back everything that belonged to her, including all the income from her land, from the day she left the country until now." Remember, the Israelites themselves didn't own their land. This was a point that God wanted to impress on them when he was making his covenant with them. This goes back to the whole idea of the year of Jubilee and how every 50 years they were supposed to reset the land, reset everything back to the way it was at the beginning. That's not the section I was looking for. Dum-de-dum. Okay. Give me a second here. There we are. Leviticus 25. Let's pick out a few verses here. This chapter is about the year of Jubilee. The Sabbath year and the year of Jubilee. Every 7th year, slaves are to go free. And then every 50 years, all debts are to be canceled, and every 7th year, the land was to be allowed to rest for a year. Then every seventh year, everything was supposed to be reset back to the way it was when they first came into the land in the days of Joshua. All debts are to be canceled. All land holdings are to be returned to their original owners. Yeah, let's see here. Leviticus 25, verse 13. In this year of Jubilee, everyone is to return to his own property. If you sell land to one of your countrymen or buy any from him, do not take advantage of each other. Now, I don't know if this woman sold her land. It doesn't seem like she did. But you are to buy from your countryman on the basis of the number of years since the Jubilee, and he is to sell to you on the basis of the number of years left for harvesting crops. When the years are many, you are to increase the price. When the years are few, you are to decrease the price. Because what you are really selling is the number of crops. They don't actually own the land. Do not take advantage of each other, but fear God. I am the Lord. The God owns the land. Skipping down a few verses. The land must not be sold. This is 23. The land must not be sold permanently, because the land is mine, and you are but aliens and my tenants. Though throughout the country that you hold as a possession, you must provide for the difference in land. So they didn't really own the land. So this woman, someone had come in and settled in on her land apparently when she was gone, and she's going to be given back the proceeds from what was produced during that time. And it says here, the king assigned an official to her case and said to him, give back everything that belonged to her, including all the income from her land, from the day she left the country until now. So she didn't actually sell the land. She didn't sell, it wasn't her land to give. She or her husband did not sell the years remaining to the year of Jubilee to anybody. Someone apparently just came and took it over while they were gone. So they're entitled to that money because they did not give up their rights to that money, and they're going to get it back. Okay, so that's it for that. Now we're going to get back to the main narrative of the historical development as we go. That was just a collection of things that happened in the days of Elisha the prophet in the second half of the 800s BC. So back to the main narrative line here in chapter 2 Kings 8, verse 7. Elisha went to Damascus, and Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, was ill. When the king was told, the man of God, so he's going there. Elisha is going there to this guy. The man of God has come all the way up here. He said to Hazael, he the king, take a gift with you and go to meet the man of God. Consult the Lord through him and ask him, will I recover from this illness? Hazael went to meet Elisha. Remember they ever heard the name Hazael before? Let's go back. 1 Kings chapter 19, this is in verse 15. This is when Elijah is out in the wilderness finding himself after running from Jezebel in the aftermath of the encounter at Mount Carmel. And the Lord says to him, go back the way you came and go to the desert of Damascus. When you get there, anoint Hazael king over Aram. That hasn't happened until now. Elisha is finally going to be the one doing this years later. Also anoint Jehu, son of Nimshi, king over Israel, and anoint Elisha, son of Shaphat, from Abel-Mahalah, to succeed you as prophet. The only one of those things that Elijah did himself was anoint Elisha. Jehu will put to the death any who escaped the sword of Hazael, and Elisha will put to death any who escaped the sword of Jehu. So now we're finally anointing Hazael, king of Aram, which Elijah was told to do a long time ago. Elisha is the one who's going to do this. And he's going here for that reason. He's not excited about this because Hazael is going to be an enemy of Israel. So he is empowering an enemy of Israel to bring destruction and devastation upon Elisha's own fellow countrymen. So he is very torn and conflicted about this. This is not something that he's looking forward to doing. Hazael went to meet Elisha, taking with him as a gift 40 camel loads of all the finest wares of Damascus. He went in and stood before him and said, your son, Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, has sent me to ask, will I recover from this illness? So even Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, is referring to Elisha as his father by saying, I'm your son. Now this is not just a term of affinity. Okay, if you wanted to just express a term of endearment or affinity to someone, you would call him your brother. Identifying someone as your father or son, that implies an authority relationship. The father is an authority over the son. A brother is not an authority over another brother. So if you're expressing a desire strictly for affinity or friendship, you say brother. If there's a power dynamic in the relationship, you introduce the idea of father and son. So Ben-Hadad, by referring to himself as Elisha's son, is putting himself under the authority of Elisha as his figurative father. So your son Ben-Hadad, king of Aram, has sent me to ask, will I recover from this illness? Elisha answered, go and say to him, you will certainly recover, but the Lord has revealed to me that he will in fact die. Or he will not recover. The Hebrew says he will not recover. The Hebrew could be read to say you will not recover. He stared at him. Elisha stared at Ahaziah with a fixed gaze until Ahaziah felt ashamed. Then the man of God began to weep. Why is my Lord weeping? Asked Ahaziah. Because I know the harm you will do to the Israelites, he answered. You will set fire to their fortified places. You will kill their young men with the sword. You will dash their little children to the ground, and you will rip open their pregnant women. That's pretty bad. Ahaziah said, how could your servant, a mere dog, accomplish such a feat? The Lord has shown me that you will become king of Aram, answered Elisha. Then Ahaziah left Elisha and returned to his master. When Ben-Hadad asked, what did Elisha say to you? Ahaziah replied, he told me that you would certainly recover. But the next day, he took a thick cloth, soaked it in water, and spread it over the king's face, so that he died. Then Ahaziah succeeded him as king. So he didn't die of the illness, but he did die of murder. In the 5th year of Joram, son of Ahab, king of Israel, when Jehoshaphat was king of Judah, Jehoram, son of Jehoshaphat, began his reign as king. So apparently Jehoshaphat was still alive at this time. There was a co-regency, apparently. He was 32 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 8 years. He walked in the ways of the kings of Israel, as the house of Ahab had done, for he married a daughter of Ahab. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord. Nevertheless, for the sake of his servant David, the Lord was not willing to destroy Judah. He had promised to maintain a lamp for Judah and his descendants forever. In the time of Jehoram, Edom rebelled against Judah and set up its own king. Remember, they were under Jehoshaphat's control, but now they're going to try to fight for their own freedom. So Jehoram went to Zair with all his chariots. The Edomites surrounded him and his chariot commanders, but he rose up and broke through by night. His army, however, fled back home. To this day, Edom has been in rebellion against Judah. So the Israelites or the Judahites never subjected Edom again after this. Libnah revolted at the same time. As for all the other events of Jehoram's reign, all that he did, are they not written in the books of the annals of the kings of Judah? Jehoram rested with his fathers and was buried with them in the city of David. And Ahaziah his son succeeded him as king. We have more about Jehoram in the account of Chronicles. So let's read that and then we'll be done for the day. Second Chronicles chapter 21. Then Jehoshaphat rested with his fathers and was buried with them in the city of David. And Jehoram his son succeeded him as king. Jehoram's brothers, the sons of Jehoshaphat, were Azariah, Jehiel, Zechariah, Azariahu, Michael, and Shephathiah. All these were sons of Jehoshaphat, king of Israel. Their father had given them many gifts of silver and gold, and articles of value, as well as fortified cities in Judah. But he had given the kingdom to Jehoram, because he was his firstborn son. This is probably another mistake of Jehoshaphat's, because Jehoram's brothers were better than him. So Jehoshaphat probably should have picked another son, but not just the firstborn, as his successor. When Jehoram established himself over his father's kingdom, he put all his brothers to the sword, along with some of the princes of Israel. So he wanted to eliminate all potential rivals, as well as get back the gifts of gold and silver and cities that their father had given them. Jehoram was 32 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 8 years. He walked in the ways of the kings of Israel, as the house of Ahab had done, for he married a daughter of Ahab. He did evil in the eyes of the Lord. Nevertheless, because of the covenant the Lord had made with David, the Lord was not willing to destroy the house of David. He had promised to maintain a lamp for him and his descendants forever. So just like Jeroboam's legacy as the first king of the northern kingdom cast a shadow over all the kings that came after him, David's legacy is keeping his lamp on in Judah for centuries afterwards. In the time of Jehoram, Edom rebelled against Judah and set up its own king. So Jehoram went there with his officers and all his chariots. The Edomites surrounded him and his chariot commanders, but he rose up and broke through by night. To this day, Edom has been in rebellion against Judah. Libnah revolted at the same time, because Jehoram had forsaken the Lord, the God of his fathers. He had also built high places on the hills of Judah, and had caused the people of Jerusalem to prostitute themselves, and had led Judah astray. Jehoram received a letter from Elijah the prophet. This is apparently Elijah, so this must have been happening before Elijah was taken up to heaven, I guess, which said, "This is what the Lord," so apparently Elijah could write, by the way. Apparently he was a literate prophet. There is no book in the Bible with his name on it, although it's possible that he wrote down some of the sections about his own ministry that appear in Kings. But apparently he was a literate prophet, because he sends Jehoram a letter here, or at least someone wrote it in his name, I guess, I don't know, which said, "This is what the Lord, the God of your father David, says. You have not walked in the ways of your father Jehoshaphat, or of Asa, king of Judah, but you have walked in the ways of the kings of Israel, and you have led Judah and the people of Jerusalem to prostitute themselves, just as the house of Ahab did. You have also murdered your own brothers, members of your father's house, men who were better than you. So now the Lord is about to strike your people, your sons, your wives, and everything that is yours, with a heavy blow. You yourself will be very ill with a lingering disease of the bowels, until the disease causes your bowels to come out." That doesn't sound very pleasant. The Lord aroused against Jehoram the hostility of the Philistines and of the Arabs who lived near the Cushites, that are to the east and south of Israel. They attacked Judah, invaded it, and carried off all the goods found in the king's palace, together with his sons and wives, just like Elijah said it would happen. Not a son was left to him except Ahaziah, the youngest. After all this, the Lord afflicted Jehoram with an incurable disease of the bowels. In the course of time, at the end of the 2nd year, his bowels came out because of the disease, and he died in great pain. So he had an 8-year reign, and the last 2 of those years were spent with this disease, which meant, and it said that was after the invasion, so the invasion from the Philistines and the Arabs was before that. His bowels came out because of the disease, and he died in great pain. His people made no fire in his honor, as they had for his fathers. Jehoram was 32 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 8 years. He passed away to no one's regret, and was buried in the city of David, but not in the tombs of the kings. So he apparently was given a commoner's burial. He was not given a fire or a procession or a proper kingly funeral service, and he was not given a proper kingly burial place. His reign was fairly short, only 8 years, and 2 of those years were spent with this disease of the intestines. And he's going to be replaced. And now we're going to go through a very dark stretch of time when there's going to be an usurper in Judah as we go into the next couple of generations, or no, chapters, I should say. Because this guy married a daughter of Ahab. I guess all the rest of his wives were carried away, but this one wife of his was not carried away, and she's going to be a problem for some time to come here still. So Ahab's legacy lingers on. Jezebel is still in the north. We haven't gotten rid of her yet. And her daughter is going to be ruling the south. So we still have to deal with the house of Ahab in both the north and the south now.